So here we are, Sic Parvis Magna, greatness from small beginnings. What's up, everybody? I'm Alex from Podcast Now, and being the resident Uncharted superfan that I am, I want to talk about this movie, and I'm going to say it right now. I liked it. I cannot, and I say this from the deepest part of my soul. I can't believe I'm saying that. If you would have told me that, I would have said that I don't even would say I liked it. I'd say I really liked it. Now, are there issues with this movie? Yes, buckle in. We're going to discuss them. But I would say this movie actually did really good. I'm happy with it. I think they did everything they kind of set out to do. I enjoyed thoroughly most of this movie. And I would say, because I enjoyed several parts, very highly, I would say overall this movie is worth your time. So I want to obviously talk a little spoiler-free. I mean, that could maybe give you a good, little indication of how I feel about it, in the first minute or so. But I want to talk spoiler-free, and then we'll go into a spoiler section, okay? I think this movie, again, sets out to do something different from the games while also borrowing very, very heavily. And while old me would not have really accepted that all that much, I think new me honestly gets it. They're doing their own thing, but they're very heavily using what Uncharted has done before. Now, I can't go into select spoilers right now, but I'll talk about in the future, or, as this video goes on. There's very clearly stuff that they borrow from much heavier than other things. The after credits scene, we can say, right? That does some very interesting things I think are pretty interesting. I really think it was okay. Again, like a few months ago, I would have told you, borrowing it and basically you're trying to be these certain parts of the games, but then you're trying to do your own thing, like pick one. I actually think they managed to do both relatively well. So let me talk about some of the strengths, okay? There was comedy, and I think when I wouldn't say it worked all the time, as it absolutely didn't, but I would say it got better as the movie went along. There is good chemistry. I would say Sully is a very difficult, and Mark Wahlberg is a very difficult person to discuss in terms of like his character arc, so I'm going to maybe dance around that, but I'll say this about Sully. I understand what they were trying to do. It made sense in a movie sense. Movies do things that you can say, well, other movies have done that. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to say without going into spoilers, but they did things that I felt obviously were necessary for where they were going with the story, but wholly unnecessary for the movie in and of itself. That you didn't have to do that. Sully, to me, his character arc and the role he played was easily my biggest flaw, by a mile, with the movie. It's a part that I don't know if I would say I hate it, but it's definitely the weakest aspect of the entire movie. Bigger than people that have a problem with Tom Holland, Nathan Drake. I thought he did good. I was kind of hoping that he would like surprise me and do really insanely good. I don't think he did. I actually think this movie was a lot more balanced than I thought it was going to be. Like, here's a couple things I did like, okay? Other than the comedy at times, the action was incredible. I actually think they nailed the action every single time they did it, whether it was Nate being beat up or Nate beating somebody else up or the set pieces. I know you can see in the trailer. I won't go too far into it. The trailer where you see the pirate ships floating, that's a good scene. Good, actually not even scene, good sequence. So I think the action, they absolutely nailed. The chemistry was pretty good, and the characters were pretty good. And like I said, it was a lot more balanced than I thought. They made Nate do things. So maybe you'd be afraid, modern day Hollywood, right? Kind of ruining franchises left and right. They don't care. How much do they actually care about Nathan Drake? How much do they care about Uncharted? Well, Nate is still, I would say, the driving force throughout the entire movie. Sully was a much bigger part than I thought he was going to be, and maybe that's just because it's Mark Wahlberg, but he steered it too. But I really think Nate, or Tom Holland, he still was the one to figure everything out. He was the treasure hunter. He was the one to put the clues together, to piece it all together, tricking people because they tricked him. Like, he was the one to do that. Chloe, awesome, really good. The character of Jo, I believe is her name. She was really, she was kind of like a stereotypical villain. I almost feel like they wanted her to be Nadine, but they didn't want to do that, so they made this character. I wouldn't say, I would walk away saying she was good, but she was kind of stereotypical of what you would expect, like a movie villain to be. Really, those four were the driving force. I won't talk too much about Antonio Banderas. He was good, but I don't want to talk too much about his character because underused is maybe the word I would use to describe it. So, again, it's very hard to talk about this movie without spoiling specifically like the Sully aspect and I guess maybe even the ending and stuff, but it's tough because I don't think this is going to please everybody. I don't think this is the best movie ever made. Of course, there's going to be people that twist my words or I guess assert that I'm saying something or I feel a certain way, even though I'm the one who's saying it out loud. You know what I mean? I do like this movie. I do. I walk out of this movie thinking that it was rather okay, rather good even, and I actually would sign up for a sequel right now. If there was a pen and paper, I mean, I do have a pen and paper, but if there was one I could sign that was official, I would sign it to say, let's see what they're going to do, because I do think, again, they respect it, maybe to an extent. We'll go into spoilers for that, but they respect it to an extent, but I think it actually comes to life rather well. I don't know how much I saw of Nolan North's Nathan Drake in Tom Holland, but I think he can get there. I think he definitely showed enough kind of sparks. Sully works for what the movie is trying to make him do, but Sully is not even remotely the same Sully that we know in the games, and that, again, is the biggest issue. Chloe, again, absolutely nailed it. I'd like to see what maybe they could do with a character like Elena, in the future. So, as always, make up your own decision. Please don't just go based off one person, or please don't look at just the reviews and based off that. How do you feel about this movie? Now you know how I feel. I would recommend it. I really would. If you're a diehard Uncharted fan, I don't think this movie insults you. Definitely didn't insult. It didn't insult me. What they did with Sully was maybe a little insulting, but overall, I don't think this movie was insulting whatsoever. I enjoyed it. Is the games better? Of course. Every single game is better. A fun thing, let me say this to end it, and we'll go into spoilers. The movie made me want to play the games. Like right now, I have Horizon. I want to play Horizon. I'm probably going to play Horizon right after this, but I actually want to play Uncharted. I do. The movie, when you walk out, I keep humming the theme song in my head, and I'll talk about that later, but it really makes me want to play this game again. It just does. And I actually kind of think that is a good, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like if that was the goal, if that was what they were trying to accomplish, they accomplished it. So let me go into spoilers because I want to talk about, some specific things. So if you don't care, awesome. If you, want to watch the movie and come back, that's great. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's talk specifically about Mark Wahlberg as Sully here, okay? Throughout the movie, I didn't really mind him in terms of the no mustache, in terms of just not sounding or looking, as Victor Sullivan, okay? Honestly, going into the movie and seeing the trailers and all that stuff, that's just the biggest thing. And of course, you're probably going to wonder, well, how does that relationship work between him and everybody else? I will say this in credit of him. I think, and it could be because it's Mark Wahlberg, it could not be, I don't know for sure, but they made Sully very capable, which I actually really enjoyed. Sully is capable, but in the games, he's a lot older, so he can't do everything that Nate can do, and that's a big aspect of the games. Obviously, 3 puts him, more in the center, but I think, and again, it probably is because of Mark Wahlberg, but he does plenty. He's not stupid. He's not a dumb character, right? You could maybe fall into that trap, too. Maybe make Sully the idiot, and then Nate can, pick up for him. They don't do that either. Sully, I think, knows his stuff. I think he knows his stuff more in the games than in the movie, but that's, one game is 8 to 10 hours. The movie itself, was 2, so, not enough time. But I think they showed he has knowledge. He can definitely fight, which I thought was cool, right? Because, again, Sully can fight, but he doesn't fight nearly as much. He gets worn out a lot faster, obviously, right? He can't be in the thick of it. They put him in it quite a bit in this movie. So I would say in the positive aspect, I kind of liked seeing what a more young and, a more agile Sully, what that's like. So I did appreciate that. The thing I despised, okay, probably the only thing I truly didn't like massively or hated, whatever word you want to use, is making him almost the villain. For a lot of the movie, he's the villain in the classic movie stereotype, right? The movie does fall into some stereotypes. And also, by the way, movie is very Indiana Jones / Pirates of the Caribbean. That is what this movie is, which is not a problem at all because that's kind of what the games are trying to be, specifically Indiana Jones. But for Sully, I don't know why they needed to make him this very, very, very self-centered, he literally could care less about everybody. He's a backstabber, all this stuff. I just don't, like, I do get it, because again, they did the stereotypical movie things where at the end of the movie, he has to choose between the gold and Nate, and he saves Nate to show his arc has come, all the way around. Like, you know what I mean? I get it, but their relationship is one of the best things about the game. Now, yes, we don't know what they're like in the beginning, but based off of what we did see in 3, I find it hard to believe Sully would act that way. That's my opinion. Now, also in the games, he meets Nate much young. I think 13 to 16, somewhere in that range. That's when he first meets Nate. Whereas obviously in the movie, he's 25. I think that's his official age. Nathan Drake, his official age in this movie is 25. So he does meet him a lot later. But he really just comes at it from, you have knowledge and I want it. And he makes some very dumb conversational mistakes throughout the film, like when Nate is, kind of having a moment and being like, you didn't tell me about Sam's dead, all this stuff, and then Sully's like, well, do you know the information or not? It's like, who would say that? A very self-centered person is the answer, but I would never think, ever, that Sully would do it. In the first game, they do make Sully out to be someone that maybe you're not supposed to trust, but honestly, Nate and Sully at that point already have a pretty okay relationship, and then it just continues to, grow stronger as the games go on. So, again, I guess the way they acted could have been their starting point, but I highly doubt it, and I just don't think you needed to have that, and because you already had Chloe provide that instability, right? Is that the word? Where, things were not stable within that trio because you never know what Chloe's going to do, which I think was fine. Everything Chloe did in this movie actually made complete sense for what you'd imagine her character in the game to do, right? She gets bought off, but then she starts to have doubts. She does like Nate, all that stuff. She is selfish, but she does care. So, I mean, it made sense all the way through. Sully, Again, I think they really stretched it to fill those movie tropes, those movie stereotypes, and I just don't think you needed that tension as much as they had. Maybe you had a little, maybe you could have had a little tension, but not as much as they had between Sully and Nate. So that was a big part. I do want to talk about another weakness. They didn't use the soundtrack almost at all. They played the music 3 times. First one was when they showed Nolan North, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie just because I really think they nailed it, right? Talking about that Nate just fell off of a car, falling from an airplane, or whatever he said. Nolan North's like, I feel like I've done that before. And it's like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. They gave him his moment. You could kind of tell it was coming. They were playing the theme song, right? Kind of like the theme you would associate with Uncharted, the theme you would associate with Nathan Drake, and then you see Nolan North, and it was beautiful. It was really good. I'm very happy. Now, I stayed a while. I didn't stay till the very end of the credits, but I didn't see any thanks to him or any thanks to Amy Hennig. Neil Druckmann was a producer, so his name was on there actually very early, along with Evan Wells. But no Amy Hennig, no Nolan North, at least not for the first 75% of credits. Maybe they were in the very end. So that was the first part. Loved Nolan North being in it. Nailed it. Loved the music. Second one was when Nate puts on the kind of the red, little, whatever it is, like the full outfit, basically, in the pirate ship when he's coming back on deck. He does a couple cool shots. He does like a nice little pose, which was fine. It was very clearly a pose. Kind of seemed cheesy, but also just kind of felt very right. You know what I mean? Played the music there. Gave me chills. And then at the very, after the end credits scene, which, by the way, sets up Uncharted 1, because they mention Roman, the guy with the eye patch. I think he's from Game of Thrones, right? He mentions Roman is looking for whatever. So obviously he's the villain of Uncharted 1, for those that are unaware. Maybe I can do a video separate on that, but they're hinting at, now again, they borrow things. So they're hinting at Roman, the Uncharted 1 villain, after just getting done with mainly Uncharted 4 stuff, with a little hint of Uncharted 3, while also having that scene take place in the flashback of Uncharted 3 when Nate and Sully first meet. So you see, they jump all over the place, and they're really borrowing, whatever they feel like borrowing. But, again, I really think they care not all the way. I really don't think that. It's kind of controversial. I feel like they do care a lot more than maybe some people will give them credit for, but I don't think they care all the way. I don't know if I fully believe of Tom's investment in Nate or in the games. I definitely don't believe in Mark's, you know what I mean? But I mean, he's just doing what he was paid to do. I think the casting for Sully was obviously a mistake, and the way they kind of did Sully was kind of a mistake, but I do think they generally care. You know, Sic Parvis Magna was mentioned like right away. They did the orphanage scene with Sam and Nate to an extent, which I thought was fine. I thought, you know, actually pretty solid. Again, the pirate ship at the very end, nailed it. It was so. They mentioned Jack Sparrow. I love that. But the pirate ship scene, or however you want, the entire thing was so good. So good. I love that action. I don't know why. I was gonna say I don't know why you'd wait until the end to do everything. Well, number one, it's that final set piece. But also, they were trying to do Uncharted things. You know what I mean? For the other parts. And here's one final thing I will say. I can see people saying there's scenes that are kind of like boring. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of a downtime. I will say, and maybe I'm just fanboying out, or maybe I'm giving them too much credit. This movie did play like a game. It did, because there were a lot of down moments, but they were all either character building towards an action set piece, or explaining history, or looking for treasure. And that's literally the game. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that was done purposely. I don't know if they meant to do that and it was kind of just like a happy coinky dink that that happened. And again, I don't know if I want to like write it off completely and say, no, you're not allowed to criticize that there was only action, a couple places and the rest wasn't. But I feel like they were building up to action. They were explaining the history, their kind of warped history, Uncharted's history, right? Looking for treasure, solving puzzles. They did that several times, right? They were doing that throughout the whole movie. And so that is the game. So I did feel like this movie, I actually feel like the parts that took me out the most were Nate and Sully. As like looking at them and just saying, I don't know if I can imagine this being Nathan Drake, Nolan North, Nathan Drake, and Victor Sullivan. I can't, and again, there were times where I did believe it. There were times where it was harder. But I think the whole surrounding of what they were trying to do, yes, it was Indiana Jonesy. Yes, it was a little Pirates of the Caribbean towards the very end. That ship fight did feel actually very Pirates-like. Fine. I actually think all that stuff really worked. I think actually in those moments, it was actually kind of the characters that maybe took it away. So, again, is this a perfect movie? No. Is this an even movie? No. For everything I like, I can probably find something I equally didn't like or would have fixed. Like I talked about the music. Why in God's name they didn't use the music more often? The soundtrack of Uncharted? No idea. Because it was the soundtrack of Uncharted, spoilers, is better than any of the music that they came up with for the movie itself. It just is. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. I think what they did with Sam was pretty okay. I don't really know if they would have done it or could have done it any other way. I kind of don't mind him. He kind of steered Nate the whole time, which makes sense from like an Uncharted 4 standpoint without being actually in the movie, except for the beginning and I guess at the very end, right? So, the after-credit scene, like I said, after-credit scene, we confirm that Sam is alive, and then the post-credit scene, or I guess, the ending of the movie is Sam is alive. Post-credit scene is setting up Uncharted 1 with Roman. Now, would they go with Eddie? Would they go with good old Eddie? I don't know for sure. That would be kind of fun, though. But, no, again, perfectly even movie that I loved all the way through? No. Whoever thought this movie would have been that, though? You know what I mean? I think it's worth it. I think it's worth the price of admission. Again, if you're an Uncharted fan, and I'm not, like, I was kind of kidding. Like I am an Uncharted mega fan. I really do support the franchise. I love the franchise to death. It's my favorite franchise ever. But I'm not claiming to speak for everybody. You know what I mean? You guys make your own decisions. I've always tried to preach that. But I would say, only based off myself and then how I think other people would feel, I really don't know if you would be insulted by this movie. I don't think you would, besides maybe the Sully stuff, but I don't think that ruins the entire movie. I don't. And I don't think Mark Wahlberg did bad for what they were trying to do with him and for what his role was. You know what I mean? It was just, I think it was just a miscast and a missed direction that they took his character. But I think it was worth it. I don't think it did not insult me. That doesn't mean it maybe won't insult you, but I overall enjoyed it. So hopefully I said everything. I'm sure I missed some things I wanted to talk about, but we can do it in the comments if you guys have any questions or have anything that you want to pick at that I said that you think is wrong. Whatever, we'll talk about it in the comments. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. All my social media is also in the description if you want to follow me anywhere or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships. Thank you guys for watching. Maybe I can do another Uncharted video talking about those the post-credit scenes, and I hope to see you guys there.